Welcome to Take Stock Live, the investor webinar series which goes live every Wednesday 15 minutes after market close. This first season runs till the end of June. So next Wednesday, the 24th, is our concluding episode. After that, we'll let you all go golfing in July and do some shopping, stock up, and see you back in August for season 2, which starts, we believe, the first week of August on a Wednesday. Thank you very much to Calgary Meg and CIM for making Mining Month happen with us here at Take Stock Live. Next week, join us back for our premier episode presenters who are coming back for an update: Commander Resources, High Gold, and Rockhaven Resources. We thank the TMX Group and TSX Venture Exchange, our event partner, for helping us keep the conversation between companies and investors going in these very unusual times. We also recognize the vital support provided by our core sponsors: Fasken, MNP, Lee Jones Gable, Olympia Trust, the CSE, who helped launch a forum back in 2014. Thank you to all our sponsors. And thank you to our extended network for their support in launching this new initiative. Thank you to the Manitoba, Saskatchewan prospectors and developers, to Conduit IR, CHF Capital, and many others. Special thank you to Investmentpitch Media and the Newswire for getting the word out. And also to Sterling Merchant Capital, who brings us our presenters this week. Thank you to Sterling and Sam Greer. I'll now turn the mic over to my colleague, our moderator, Mark Francis. Take it away, Mark.
Thank you, Raj, and welcome all of you, our attendees and guest presenters. Note our disclaimer. This presentation is for information only and is not a solicitation to buy or sell stock. Companies pay fees to present at Take Stock, and Take Stock and its principals, Raj Joshi and Mark Francis, may have equity investments in companies we invite to present, may consult to the companies, and make no representation or investment or other recommendation in regards to these presenting or any other companies. You should do due diligence and seek professional investment advice. Some housekeeping matters for attendees. You will note a red button on your screen. If you lose audio, just click it and you will be reconnected. Normally we run just under 45 minutes, but today, after the Q&A panel portion, we will allow extra question time at the very end for the geologically, technically minded. The chat board will be utilized in this session, in particular for this. Please be clear about to whom your question is addressed. Each company will have a presentation with their PowerPoint, followed by a panel discussion with Q&A moderated by Al Turner of the Calgary Mineral Exploration Group, the MEG Forum. We encourage you to connect with the companies directly in order to get detailed information. Contact details for the presenters can be found on our website, takestocklive.com. Today we are presenting 3 companies in association with Sterling Merchant Capital, a Calgary-based investor relations company that focuses on mining and has been in operation since 2005. With us today is Sam Greer, president of Sterling, and he will take over from here. Welcome, Sam.
Thank you very much, Mark. It's an absolute pleasure to be here, and thanks for having me. We have 3 very solid mining companies presenting that we quite like at Sterling. Corvus Gold, which is a North American gold story, Steppe Gold, an international gold story, and Copper Fox Metal, a copper play. Representing Corvus Gold is Quentin May. Quentin is the Director of Shareholder Services for Corvus Gold. Previously, he was the Vice President Business Development of International Tower Hill Mines. Representing Steppe Gold, Anil Warich. Anil is the Executive Vice President and Director of Steppe Gold. He is a financial services professional with over 15 years of progressive experience in capital markets, having worked on $1 billion in deals focused on the resource sector. He is the founder of Atma Capital Partners, which focuses on advising public and private companies in the natural resources sector. And representing Copper Fox is Elmer Stewart. Elmer is a professional geologist, CEO and board chairperson of Copper Fox Metals. He has over 43 years of experience in mining and exploration for gold, uranium, and base metal and copper companies. During his career, Elmer has been involved in the financing and acquisition of base metal and gold projects, as well as the development and construction of 2 underground mines and the construction and operation of 3 open pit gold mines. So as you can see, we've got 3 very high caliber mining professionals here with us today. Our first presenter, Quentin May of Corvus Gold. Quentin, pleasure to have you here. Please take it away.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for spending your Wednesday afternoon with us and listening in on the Corvus Gold story. I'll start right in because 6 minutes and there's a lot to cover. The first slide here essentially just gives you an idea of the topography in the area. The big bowl there is a mother lode project that was mined in the late 1980s. 30,000 ounces were mined there. And there was a resource of 400,000 ounces when we bought that deposit from Goldcorp 3 years ago for 1 million shares. We've now got a resource on that area alone of 1.4 million ounces, and it's getting bigger as we go. So you're just getting an idea. This is 2 hours north of Las Vegas, a highway going right past the project. So you got great infrastructure, great mining district, and a place you want to go. So you got a lot of jurisdictional benefits that are going on here, as well as the topography. It's a place you can permit to go forward with. We are forward-looking statements here. As we all know, with this business, management, start and stop is the most important thing. Most of this management from Corvus is all ex-AngloGold Ashanti. Even the property packages are come out of AngloGold's exploration group from the early 2000s. That was basically put on care and maintenance. Jeff Pontius, our president CEO, who at the time left Anglo, was able to negotiate to take those projects into a new company, International Tower Hill. Made a big discovery, 10 plus million ounces outside Fairbanks, Alaska. The board decided to build a project there in 2010, and everything else got spun off into Corvus, and the management left too. Top right, Ron Largent. Ron was the number 2 at AngloGold Ashanti until the end of 2017. He retired. He was consulting to Corvus. His background is 40 years mine building all over the world. So we've got a mine finder with Jeff Pontius and a mine builder with Ron Largent. So a lot of the numbers I'm going to get to on the project actually come out of Ron. Ron's the one that developed those from projects Anglo's built recently. We have raised 90 million so far, and essentially the share structure is quite good. We've done strategic private placements and predominantly gold and transaction-minded individuals. So we are not intending to build, although we are transaction-minded. We are very much open to taking the project forward towards build as the project evolves, and I'll get into that in a minute. Share structure is critical. You know, we've all had some tough days for the past 5 or 6 years of the gold market. Corvus has actually maintained a pretty decent share structure, no warrants. Treasury did a $20 million bought deal with BMO last October. Still got 18 million of that in the treasury. And you can see AngloGold's prorated 19.9%, Tocqueville, Van Eck, and management skin in the game. This is because there was a spin-off. All of us have bought our positions around $1 Canadian. So there's a really hard position, hard dollar management, hard dollar investment position management have in the company. Here's a location. Again, you can see this project on the map here for Nevada. It's just 2 hours north of Las Vegas on the highway between Reno and Las Vegas. It's on the Nevada side of the border of the Walker Lane district that borders with California. It's a great jurisdiction, as mentioned, in an area that's not seen a lot of modern exploration other than us in this area around this town of Beatty. If we take a look at a lot of the stuff that's going on in the area right now, we've got the core land position, the light blue and the darker kind of purplish color land position around the town of Beatty. As you can see, AngloGold has now taken 100% ownership of the position to the top right of the map, or the north east. Core Mining has bought the project by Northern Empire 2 years ago for $90 million. And Kinross has recently staked a bunch of ground. We have all kind of the key land position because we've been there since 2010-11. And essentially, we've got the only 2 privately held water rights in the district as well. But you can see there's a lot of things happening in the area, a lot of producers around, and we are the only non-producer in the area right now amongst Anglo, Kinross, and Core. 2 years ago, we put out a PEA 2018. Essentially, we were just trying to see how big this was in case anybody tried to make a move on us. What was this looking like at $1,250 gold? You can see from the red dotted line across, 300,000 ounces a year producer for the first 4 years, and then it drops off, front-loaded production. As you can see by the green bar on the box, it's a 1250 number. It's got a 5% discount of $586 million NAV US, and that was from 2 years ago. We've actually done 40,000 meters of drilling since then, and we've optimized a lot of the costs. So these numbers on the right are moot. We are planning to put out a new and updated PEA in September, but at least giving you the idea that the market cap right now is still about 40% of what this is. So there's certainly room to grow based on the size of this project, based on the economics of this project. You can also see life of mine production, 282,000 ounces a year overall. And the second bottom bullet point, 424 million of initial capex. That was based on the sulfide at mother lode being autoclaved or pressure oxed. We're now looking at bio-oxing, and the numbers, metallurgy on that now work on that. So you'll be seeing an update on that. And we're assuming about 80 million less in capex for the updated PEA that's again scheduled for September. So Ron Largent put together a model for us to look at multi-phase. So if you take the best million ounces, what's that going to look like? And so essentially, the North Bullfrog, the northern property, there's 2.2 million ounces in resource. You take the best million ounces, this is what the project will look like. The numbers on that are around 100 to 120 million in capex. At $1,450 gold, you're looking at in the $500 million range of NAV. And it's something that could be in production in 2 to 3 years, which is based this chart here. You can see up in the top, the North Bullfrog, the yellow circle area around the red spot. You can see that there's that's where the best million ounces. And at the bottom, phase 1 environmental assessment followed by an EAS. That's about a 6 to 9 month permitting process. So right now, as I mentioned at the beginning, we are not planning to go into production, but we are now positioning ourselves to go forth into production and permit. Am I coming up on my time here?
15 seconds.
Okay, so we've got all the infrastructures taken care of. We've got water, power, access, and labor. And the sizzle to the story is the North Bull is the Mother Lode project, the one in the south, 1.4 million ounces. Looks like the resource update in September should give us over 2 million ounces. And there's an entirely new discovery of oxide below that, below the 400 meters we've drilled. Thank you.
Quentin, thank you very much. And now for our next presenter, Anil Ward of Steppe Gold. Anil, please take it away and welcome.
Thanks very much, Sam. And thank you for everyone for attending and taking the time out to hear our stories. For those who are not familiar with our story, we are Steppe Gold. We're listed on the main board of the TSX. We listed our company. It was a main board IPO in 2018, May 22nd, 2018. So just over 2 years ago, we were the only mining main board IPO in 2018. So in a very tough market, we raised $25 million. And since then, we've actually built the mine. These are the usual forward-looking statements, they're disclaimers. So I just want to highlight we are a producer today. So as of April this year, we have been producing and selling gold and silver. We are now month 3 of production. And I would say within a few weeks from today, we'd be in a position to update the market on how our first quarter of startup ramp up has panned out. And we did announce to the market on May 11th how our first month of startup and has been going, and we recovered and sold over 5,200 ounces of gold. So very strong start to an operation here. We have a tight share structure of 50.4 million shares outstanding, and fully diluted basis about 65 million shares. So a tight share structure. We listed at $2 2 years ago, and today gold is $500 more. Our mine is built and in production, and there's no permitting risk or capex risk. So we've de-risked the company. We're now in production, and we're still trading below where we listed. So there's obviously an opportunity here before we start re-rating as an actual producer. We're on track to produce 60,000 ounces this year. That'll generate approximately 40 million US of EBITDA, and we think we'll have a net cash balance on our balance sheet of 20 million US. That's net of exploration on both of our projects, feasibility for our phase 2 that's already permitted, and resource and reserve update, as well as sustaining capex on our current operating mine. We have a strong support in country with Mongolian nationals as well as the Mongolian government. The sovereign fund in Mongolia made their first ever investment earlier on this year for 3 million US. So we have strong participation locally, provincially, and federally. So it's we've really done things properly in country. Half our board are Mongolian, our CEO is Mongolian, and all of our staff in country are Mongolian except for 2. So we're on track, like I said, 60,000 ounces, and we're moving forward with a feasibility to grow that to 150,000 ounces. So this is just the topography where we're working with here. So I want to show you how easy it is to build a mine here. AT01 is this yellow circle here. We've chopped off the top basically of this intercap here. We're probably at about 10 meters in a shallow open pit. The oxides are the top 25 to 40 meters of each of these deposits, and then we'll transition into the sulfides, which is our phase 2. We have some pretty, I guess, significant margin here on this starter project with cash costs and all-in costs, tracking at $500 US for the year, and life of mine about $600 all in as well. So it's a very robust starter project that's generating cash that allows us to fund the growth of the company. So this is highlighting from our technical report what our initial life of mine looked like. This will be updated in the summer. As we are producing 60,000 ounces this year, we believe we're on track to produce the same for the next 3 years going forward. And that's because we're able to increase our mining and stacking crushing rate. Currently, our model was at 3,500 tons per day, and I can say that we're tracking closer to 5,000. And once we're comfortable enough at that number, I think we'll release to the market an updated forecast for this starter project. So what we have is obviously cash flow generation. We have a phase 2 project underneath where we've already had exploration success and we're completing the feasibility study. We believe it'll be about 100 million capex to build our CIL plant, our expansion project, and we should be in a position, if everything works well in the coming quarters, to start that next year. The first 2 years of cash flow, net cash from the heap leach, could actually fund our equity component of this build with traditional debt to add to that as the 70% split between 70 debt and 30 equity. So this really is the highlight here. So ATO 1, 2, and 4 deposits, the top 25 to 40 meters of these deposits are the heap leach mine. Everything underneath is the sulfides that will be part of our phase 2. What's most important here is the Mungu discovery here to the right is a discovery that we've since drilled since we took over this project from Centerra. We drilled our first hole. It was 46 meters at 15 grams gold and 82 silver. Mungu has never had a resource put on it. We're going to put our main resource on Mungu later this summer. We have 11,000 meters of pending results that will come in July, and we'll actually incorporate that into our first update on this on the project with our 30,000 meters of drilling, where you'll see some, we think, a significant update to both the phase 1 that's currently in operation, but most importantly, the phase 2, which we're pushing forward and expediting. We've had some exploration wins here with ATO 4. We've extended the mineralization outside of what was thought to be originally constrained breccia pipe and tracking right towards Mungu here. So there's a lot of exploration still to be completed on this project. We've been focused in the last 18 months on building our first mine, getting to production, cash flow, a taxpayer, an employer, and a royalty payer in country. And all that's happening right now and will continue. We have a second project in the country. This is an undrilled license that sits in the southwest of the country. We've, again, haven't had the time or money or resources to focus on this license, but it's a highly effective exploration license. We have another company called Erdene Resources have licenses directly to the north and south. They have about 1 million ounces between their 2 deposits, and they're already working on a feasibility study on the license to the south. So this is a very exciting project that we'll actually get to in just a couple of weeks. In July, we'll be able to start a trenching that will help de-risk some of the drilling and drilling. So lots of news flow with commercial production, generating free cash flow, exploration, resource updates, and of course the feasibility study. And I think I've hit my mark. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Neil. That was great. And last up is Elmer Stewart of Copper Fox. Elmer, please tell us about Copper Fox. Take it away.
Thank you very much. Copper Fox, the topic of today is creating value in the copper space in North America. These are forward-looking statements. Please read them very carefully. Why copper fundamentals? Essentially, they're predicting by the year 2027 a 4.5 million ton of new copper is required. That equates to a 2 million ton deficit. And those that are following the copper space, that's equivalent to about 6 Cobre Panamas or QB2s. And those that are following the copper space will understand the size of these copper projects that are currently either in production or under the development stage. And underpinning this is the forecast that by the year 2035, there will be 200 of the existing copper mines in the world will be out of production. And the way we look at it at Copper Fox, it's all about managing the risk. And this slide is essentially it's basically a path of how an exploration project is generated. It's right straight through the exploration development to the end game of finding a mine. Clearly, in the exploration side, the risk is high, and on the mine side, the risk is low, and that you reduce the risk as you go through it. And we've shown on this slide where our projects lie, including the Eaglehead project, which is currently in the process of acquisition of that project. We always look at creating value, and essentially we look at ourselves as an advanced stage copper project generator in North America. We work only in North America. Essentially, we acquire a project, we do the work, and then try to monetize it with a strategy at higher levels. We've got a very good pipeline of projects, and with closure of the acquisition of Eaglehead, we feel our pipeline will be full. Our two advanced projects are Shaft Creek, which is a 25% interest in the Shaft Creek joint venture with Teck Resources. That's in the Golden Triangle in northern British Columbia. And the Van Dyke, which is 100% interest in a copper in situ copper recovery project in the Laramie province of Arizona. Also talked about Sombrero Butte Mineral Mountain projects, which we also have in Arizona, and obviously Eaglehead as well. This is a map showing the western half of North America and the location of the projects we have in the acquisition in northern British Columbia. The primary one there is the Shaft Creek project. It's a large porphyry copper system. Some parameters listed there. 11.9 billion pounds of copper equivalent has been outlined to date on the deposit. And one of the things about it is we don't really know how big the deposit is. It's not been drilled out. Down in the south in Arizona, this is the Laramie province, so it shows our projects. The advanced one there is Van Dyke. We recently completed a resource update in early May of 2020, and that project is now at about 1.7 billion pounds of contained copper, and that deposit is not drilled out yet. It's open to expansion. I want to give you a couple of examples of how we've been creating value. In 2002 to 2012, Copper Fox acquired the Shaft Creek project. We invested about $80 million in exploration development costs. So in 2013, we finished a feasibility study, which has an NPV8 of $528 million. And the key thing was that the project was extremely sensitive to foreign exchange. We used a foreign exchange 0.97 at the time. In 2013, Teck exercised the back-end right, and we negotiated the joint venture agreement, pursuant to which Teck is responsible for 3 cash payments of totaling $60 million, of which we've already received 20. They're also responsible for pre-production expenditures of up to $60 million, and to date they spent about $24 million. They're arranging 100% of the project financing, and Teck has retained the right of first offer on the project. Moving forward, in 2018, the joint venture completed an updated resource estimate and followed that with a sizing and infrastructure study reviewing the 4 scenarios. As a result of the 2018 work, 2019, we just completed an in-depth study on the 133,000 ton per day scenario. The work is done. The report right now is being prepared. This is a slide of the Shaft Creek project. You can see down in the right left corner the scale, and that's very important because it shows you the immense size of the Shaft Creek deposit. To the northeast of it, in the lower corner, you can see the discovery zone with some intersections there as well. Now, if you looked at the IP survey, that the signature of those two, one could easily project that that's possibly those two zones are part and parcel of the same deposit. As I said earlier, we're also involved in the Laramie province, copper province of Arizona, and that's probably the largest copper producing district in the world. Map showing the location of our projects. I mean, the IS in situ copper recovery projects that are in Arizona listed there. Porphyry copper projects lists our exploration projects. One thing we like about the laramide systems is that they're typically very large, as you can see, based on the list of porphyry systems in Arizona. How did we create value at Van Dyke? Well, in 2012, we bought the project for $2.7 million. And by the end of 2015, we invested another $9 million, at which point in time we completed a positive preliminary economic assessment. Parameters are listed there, but essentially the post-tax NPV8, it was $209 million, an 8% discount rate with a 28% internal rate of return. Now, those are fairly robust economics for a copper project. One of the other things that was interesting is the direct cash cost of 60 cents a pound. That report probably is out of date now because of the 2020 resource estimate. That what we did, we updated it. It came out and that we changed the resource classification. We now have substantial indicated resource as well as inferred resource, increased the soluble copper grades, and added about 400 million pounds of copper to the project. Catalyst and monetization. Clearly, when we get to a stage where we think we're adding additional value does not add any further value, clearly you got to go look for a partner. The other things that could be a function of that is simply what is going on in the space. Very few large advanced development stage projects in place. Rate of discovery is declining, and we just like the fundamentals of the copper space going forward. And my final statement, the important thing here I want to draw to your attention is that the insiders own about 58% of the shares. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, gentlemen. Very well done. At this point, I'd like to introduce to the panel Al Turner. Al is a professional geologist with Stantec and also serves as the president of the Calgary chapter of the Mineral Exploration Group. Welcome, Al. Great to have you here.
Great. Thanks a lot, Sam.
You bet. Okay. So everybody, I'd like to start the panel discussion off with a COVID question. How has the COVID crisis impacted your company's operation? Elmer, why don't we start off with you?
It's actually slowed everything down considerably. Clearly, we've adopted a COVID policy in line with the British Columbia requirements and the Arizona requirements, but overall slowed down. But we're cautiously optimistic that we're going to get back to carrying out actually active field programs toward the end of the year.
Excellent. Okay. And Neil, how has this affected you folks?
Luckily, not at all. So our target was to start production at the end of March, and we were able to operate all through winter, mining, stacking, crushing, and luckily also bring in our required chemicals to start leaching process in the month of March when travel and borders were quite restrictive. So the Mongolian government took a pretty strong stance earlier on and limited, they restricted travel. They closed down the borders with China and Russia. They closed all non-essential businesses, schools, and that's still ongoing. But miners were allowed to keep continuing forward, and our team is all safe on site. They stay on site. We have a 200-person camp on site, and we're doing regular check. But bottom line is we brought production online when all this happens, and that's the importance of having a local team. Having a Mongolian operating team obviously allowed us to continue, which is great.
Okay, excellent. Quentin, your turn. How has the COVID crisis impacted Corvus Gold?
It hasn't affected us all. Nevada's rediscovered it's a mining state when tourism to Vegas cut off. So we've actually been getting a lot of encouragement to keep people working and investing in the state. So we're actually in a very, very active area. There's drilling programs from Kinross, Coeur, ourselves. We have 3 drills on the project now, and there's been no letting up. And Anglo just got their permit, and so they're supposed to start drilling in the next couple of months as well. So there's been no impact whatsoever. There's no cases in the area of Beatty, Nevada, where we're operating.
Okay, excellent. Okay, if we can get Elmer and Neil and Quentin to get on the video here, we're going to start off the panel discussion. We've got Al Turner here, so log on here, guys. Al, great to see you.
Thanks a lot, guys. I'm going to start off the questions to Elmer. And Elmer, in your presentation, you talked a little briefly about Mineral Mountain, and from what I understand, you completed a staking program for Mineral Mountain in 2015 and completed a comprehensive remapping in 2018. Why did Copper Fox target this area, and what property observations have you made to date?
Thanks, Al. Mineral Mountain Project is located on a structural trend in Arizona. And it's on the same trend where you go all the way from Casa Grande in the west to the Miami Inspiration deposits in the east. It's a very narrow belt. It's probably about 2 kilometers wide. And we were looking at that and seen an old mining district where we've seen a considerable amount of working and a laramide age porphyry copper stock. So we did some follow-up work and we liked the footprint we'd seen. It was certainly porphyry style footprint as measured in terms of kilometers. Did some groundwork, and once we got on the ground, we started seeing a lot of features of porphyry copper. So we actually were able to go out and stake the property. We didn't have to option, no cash payments, relatively cheap to maintain. And the work we did in 2018 clearly indicated in our mind that we have a very large porphyry copper system, and it's now getting very close to the stage where we're about to be able to start selecting drill targets.
That's excellent news. Moving on to Quinton, a question about Corvus. So maybe you discussed this in your presentation. I got on a little bit later, but is Corvus planning on developing the North Bullfrog deposits that you've delineated there and the Mother Lode deposit kind of at the same time, or what sort of phasing approach are you planning on using?
Essentially, Ron Largent, when he joined 18 months ago as a consultant, and he's now, as of a year ago, become our chairman. He started to think, if I'm building this, how would a smaller developer do it, not a big Anglo Gold type project go? So essentially, there's 2 deposits 10 kilometers apart, North Bullfrog, and the one in the south is Mother Lode. The North Bullfrog has 2.2 million ounce resource. So Ron, and it's open pitable oxide. So Ron essentially said, how much is it going to cost to get that up into production on an initial phase, and then can the cash flow from that be used to cover the payment or the capex from the subsequent phases? And he answered that yes. And so essentially, this is pre-feasibility was just done and completed internally in the last days. That is now going to be rolled into a full-scale PEA. And so essentially what Ron did was, what happens if you take the best million ounces? What'll it cost you to get into production? How quickly can you be into production? And what's that going to look like in production? And essentially it's CapEx is just around 100 million. Op costs are in the lowest quartile. Permitting is about within around 12 months, and the NAV of that's in the $400 to $500 million US range, and that NAV cash flow from that at $1,450 gold will actually build out the rest of your subsequent phases. So that's not public in the sense of those numbers out there. We put out a release last week, basically stating that we're looking at near-term production models, but the exchange wouldn't let us put any numbers in without the actual report, which we're not ready to put out till September. Excellent. So we have it internally, just not publicly yet.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. Neil, question for you, and this came out of your presentation right now that you mentioned. You were talking about the pipe number 4 resources, which extend outside of the pipe. Is this fault-hosted mineralization? Your mic's not turned on, Anil.
Anil, sorry, your mic's not on.
Can you hear me now? Sorry. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, good. Well, I know it's a controlled structure, and so I don't want to go beyond saying anything more technical as a non-geologist. But what we did is when we took over the property is reinterpret all the data that Centerra had collected, 67,000 meters of drilling, 20,000 meters of trenching. And very quickly, we noticed that ATO4 looked very similar to the Mungu deposit that's half a kilometer away. And so we tested that by stepping out and we extended the mineralization. There's still a lot more work to be done, and we just haven't had the time or money or resources to focus on it. So once we get the last set of results back, we'll actually take in all the 30,000 meters of drilling that we've done, some infill, some extensional or new exploration drilling, and then come up with a new plan. And we have an exploration team, our VP of exploration, who's Mongolian, and Matt Wood. They really come up with the new plan and talk about what you're asking without I don't want to embarrass the company by saying anything incorrect.
Not a problem at all. Going back to Elmer, can you tell us more about Copper Fox's interest in the Eagle Head project?
Yeah, we invested in District Copper in 2014, primarily because they did have the Eagle Head project, and it was a porphyry copper system in northern British Columbia. Subsequently, they decided they wanted to go into the gold space, and they've got properties in Newfoundland and in Matachewan, Ontario. We're still interested in that porphyry copper system, and so subsequent to that, we made an offer to acquire that from District Copper, and that transaction is clearly now in the process of completing. We hope to complete that before the fall, and we're looking forward to adding that to our pipeline of projects.
Great, excellent. Thank you, Elmer. Quentin, I'll put you back in the hot seat here for a minute. On your page 6 of your slide deck, you showed that Corvus holds land to the northeast between AngloGold's land parcels. And on that picture, on that diagram that you showed, it showed that there was targets that were identified in that land package. Can you tell us a little bit about these targets? That's an interesting area.
Well, Anglo, the group that actually run this for Anglo, were actually out of Australia, and their geological team, and they stake the ground by GPS, not by actual stakes in the ground like you need to do in Nevada. And so they missed a strip, 200-meter strip. So we jumped on both of those on that map. I didn't paginate properly on the PowerPoint, but it's slide 15, but it's actually number 6. And so essentially, when we were out there putting the stakes in, the guys that were doing it were actually seeing, at least on the one that's bisected Anglo's property, the north-south one, there's some outcropping there that we need to do some follow-up on. And then the one that's in the east-west one to the north where it says Motherlode, that's another 200-meter strip that was left vacant between the old Northern Empire ground and Anglo's ground that we staked as well, that was left vacant. And we figure better us than somebody else who Anglo has an ownership position in. And quite frankly, we've got some targets up there that we're looking to get some drill holes into. As far as the work that's been done now, it's all been superficial. So we're trying to get the drills up there scheduled to get in there as we speak.
Okay, on that note, I can't let it go here. So are you dealing with more of a volcanic host style, or is there Carlin in that area, or what are we looking at?
I believe, remember, I'm not a geologist, but I believe I'm hearing the word volcanics kicked around. So if my non-geological ears are picking up correctly from what's being discussed with the people that actually do the geospeak.
Excellent. Okay, thanks a lot, Quentin. Appreciate it. Let's move back to Anil. Now, in your presentation, you mentioned that you've got M&I resources measured and indicated. Just wondering, are you not reporting the inferred at this point, or because ATO has gone to, obviously it's a reserve, because it is being mined now. So yeah. Is there a reason for that? Maybe just elaborate on that. I'm just kind of curious.
Yeah. No problem. So that technical report you see is actually based only on Centerra's work. So we listed in 2018 all on Centerra's work. So that's what they decided to categorize. So you'll see the breakdown. You'll see reserves, which is the oxides only. So you'll see the 210,000 ounces of reserves at a grade of 1.25, which is great for a heap leach. Some of our drilling now will update both those reserves and the oxides. It's probably the measured and indicated, and also the inferred, because this new update later in the summer will have 30,000 meters, like I mentioned, which will include a new discovery, that Mungu discovery. So that would probably start as a resource, not a measured and indicated category first. But we have enough holes now to put a maiden one on that. So what you see is only based on Centerra's work when we bought the project from them. We bought a build ready project, but none of our drilling is included.
Perfect. That's good news that there's that kind of upside. We're kind of coming close to about 3 o'clock. It's 2:56. I'm going to shift gears a little bit and go into kind of dive a little bit deeper into the technical. We've already dabbled a bit with the technical and the geology side, but I'm going to ask a few more technical questions. So anybody who's not really interested in that side of the discussion, you don't need to watch from here on, but I don't think you should get off, because this will be pretty interesting stuff we're going to address. So I'm going to move on to a question here to Elmer on the Sombrero Butte project. Can you discuss, Elmer, the similarities in the mineralized breccias observed at Sombrero Butte to those of Copper Bank's Copper Creek project, which is adjacent to the north side of Sombrero Butte?
Yes, the Copper Banks deposit is about 2 kilometers north of our northern border. Right on the border, we have a breccia swarm, which was the subject of historical mining activities. The work that we've done clearly indicates that there are breccias, there are multiple sources. Styles of mineralization seem to be the same, even down possibly even to the rare earth content of the deposits. That's not to say there's economic concentrations of rare earths in those breccia pipes, but the fact of the matter is it's a geochemical indicator indicating potentially same source intrusive at depth. So a lot of similarities, and recently we just found another swarm of pipes at the south end of the property, I should say south central part of the property, exhibiting very similar characteristics. So we're of the opinion that that porphyry trend continues down to the south, even possibly further south than our Cerbero View project.
Excellent, thank you, Elmer. That's good upside. Anil, question for you about the kind of the ATO project and the epithermal association. Obviously, a high sulfidation epithermal deposit, or sorry, intermediate sulfidation epithermal.
Intermediate,
I believe.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And with that, I guess the question is on deleterious elements. That seems to come up when we start talking about epithermal deposits.
Yeah.
With the geochemistry, have you come across any mercury or arsenic or thallium associated with the ore? And obviously you're mining, so you're addressing this if it's even present. Can you tell us about that and maybe the process?
Yeah, sure. Well, actually, yeah, since we are mining and leaching at the moment, we're real time now. So there are no dirties, as we call them on site, I guess, the technical guys. So no issues on any of those elements you mentioned. There's no clays, no fines. This is as easy as it gets when it comes to oxidized material. You're crushing it down to 25 millimeters and it leaches very, very well. So we don't do anything except for the solution. That's the normal solution of reagents and cyanide. And you're really just irrigating it. It's been coming out. Nice.
That's excellent news, and yeah, it looks like road access isn't too hard to get into that area either. So
no, not at all. It's about 40 kilometers from the main highway, and we're next to China. We're in the easternmost province of Mongolia. You got Russia to the north, where there are other large epithermal gold deposits like ours that are in production, and you have China, where logistically we have the cost and advantage. That's where all equipment has come from. That's where our next phase, the CIL plant, will also come from. We'll be able to. We can, procurement is very easy for us, both in terms of cost and timing.
Thank you for that. I appreciate the discussion. I'm going to move over to some of the questions that are coming in through the chat. Here's a question for Elmer. How long before the next capital injection for share dilution or sale of Shaft Creek or Shaft Creek joint venture Tech 20 million milestone payment? Can you speak to that?
Yes, I can. Clearly, we are advancing the Shaft Creek project. We did a substantial amount of work in 2019. That report is being prepared, at which point in time the board will address the value created and make a decision whether it's time to monetize that asset or not. And that's a board decision and will be taken only after the report is finalized. As far as capital injection, we've completed a raise earlier this year, and we have sufficient funds to carry us through the year. So.
Okay, thanks a lot for that, Elmer. While we're kind of on that discussion a little bit, I'm going to ask a technical question on the Van Dyke deposit. Now, the location, it's located in the highly deformed Globe Miami district. Can you discuss the potential that this deposit may be maybe the oxidized remnant and possibly rotated part of a dismembered porphyry?
That's correct. It is. The work we did in 2019 and the report we filed in 2020 clearly has indicated a number of features that would suggest you are looking at the oxidized portion of the southern extension of the deposits that were mined by Freeport-McMoran and by BHP. We've also identified a number of other characteristics that clearly identify it as a weathering oxidation supergene enrichment zone. And we're looking, the way we look at it is that's exactly what the Van Dyke project is. And it's open to the south. We don't know how big it is. There's approximately 2 kilometer strike length there of a very prospective ground to add more copper to the project itself. And we believe that the the potential there is possibly you could probably easily exceed 2 billion pounds of soluble copper. And in those kind of deposits, it's only the soluble copper you're interested in, because that's what you get with the recovery techniques used.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Elmer. Quinton, one for you. And so the Mother Lode deposit is within a few hundred meters of Coeur's SNA project. And a couple of questions about that. I guess is there a thought in Corvus that there might be a structural connection between these two deposits?
Yeah.
Just curious what the delineation drilling has been, what the communication with Coeur has been. Maybe you can provide some input.
Well, essentially, as some people have noticed, is the pit wall in that original model was pretty steep. Essentially, what we have been trying to do subsequently in the last 12 plus months is get with Coeur about an MOU with regards to looking at the structure of the ore body, regardless of the boundaries. And that agreement has been made. We don't have a press release on that, but we do have, for all intents and purposes, a quote unquote a memorandum of understanding with Coeur that we can look at the pit, the model as whatever is economic, regardless of the boundaries, and we'll figure out how that'll be broken out later. You know, we've kicked around some potential numbers, but nobody's been happy until they at least want to drill their side of the ground to get an idea of what they'd be either giving up or getting. Although we basically offered them, at least on their side, delivery wherever they want the ore. But they've said, let's figure out what we've got before we go forward. But for all intents and purposes, there's a resource update in the PEA coming out scheduled for September. And in that, we'll incorporate ounces right up until the border because of that MOU.
Oh, excellent news. And well, that was actually the second question I was going to ask was there any idea or any collaboration or potential joint development of these projects? So that's great news that they're developing.
Well, development, no, but the MOU is just to address it as it evolves. So, and what that allowed us to do is include the ounces that were close to the boundary to be incorporated into the upcoming resource, which is really either of us wanted to do. Because nobody really knows, we don't really know how many ounces are there, neither do they on their side. So they weren't prepared to really enter anything more formal or structured until they know exactly what they've got. So as far as development goes, that's still a can we've kicked down the road, basically.
Sure, that makes sense. Okay, excellent. Thanks, Quinton. Just moving on then, Anil, I've got one for you. Now you brought up the new areas that you're looking at, which is the UK project.
Yeah.
And you brought this up in your presentation as well, that there's sinters proximal to surface. You cut those off. So we're dealing with obviously a complete epithermal system here. I guess, is this also the case for the 4 exploration projects in the UK? Or exploration, I guess, targets that you've looked at in the UK project land holdings? Do you see these preserved epithermal centers, or what's
not yet? It's a large package, 14,400 hectare license. Our geologist obviously knows the property very well. It's an undrilled license, so we haven't drilled it. Nobody has. So this license has never been available until we actually acquired it jointly with the provincial government. So there was, I think, at surface small scale mining previously, and so all we've identified are our discoveries that we're going to trench and drill in July. Start drilling in July will be based on IP magnetics and soil sampling.
Oh, right. And that was actually something I wanted to ask you about, was the trenching program, and what sort of results were you getting from that?
We're just starting that in July. Early July, we'll start the trenching first, and that's obviously to help de-risk the drilling targets as we move forward. So I think it's a couple of weeks of trenching, and then we get to the drilling. But a very exciting project. We've never drilled it. It's obviously been drilled to its borders, or close to it at least, with another company, and they've had a lot of success. So quite exciting project to get to finally.
Excellent, thank you. And Elmer, another one for you here, and then I'll let you off the hot seat as well. But the Van Dyke PEA reviews basically mentioned that the in situ leach was successful for copper extraction, and that there had been some studies that had been done on the in situ leach, but on the kind of in the same breath, we can say that there was underground workings as well, previously, historic ones on the Van Dyke. Can you comment then on how might these old workings affect the in situ, or how they basically might interact with the in situ leaching? Are they extensive? Are there not a lot of workings? What's and if you are doing it, what kind of separation might you have from the underground workings? Feel free to speak to that, Elmer.
Yeah, there was a small mine there. It was called the Van Dyke Mine. It was done around the turn of the 20th century. The lateral extent of the workings are probably in the order of about 200 meters by about 100 meters. They focused on a part of the Van Dyke deposit that averaged in excess of 5% copper, because back in the day, that's what made sense. The extent of the underground workings will have no impact whatsoever on an in situ copper recovery scenario, because of the way of placing of the wells and the way we address the access and to go forward there. It will not have any effect whatsoever on the deposit itself. No.
Okay, excellent. Thanks, Elmer. Another question coming up on the chat board. This one's for Anil. Steppe. Is Steppe getting attention from institutional investors?
Yeah. Now we are. Listen, permitting is behind us. We are in production. What institutional investors want to see is obviously some more production numbers, and I think our next update or updates, but I think our next update alone will probably garner some significant attention. I think in terms of showing some stability in production, that our startup and ramp up is working well. We're producing on a regular basis and recovering gold, and more importantly, cash and cash flow. So institutions like to see at least a quarter or sometimes a couple to get comfortable in terms of the operations. But I think with our quick startup and the way we've progressed, I think pretty quickly, with strong on the operational side, with this now exploration, call it sizzle, in July, I think we get a lot more attention.
Excellent. Okay. And then you mentioned you've done some production already. A question again on the chat board. Is Steppe about to release the second batch of production soon?
So actually second batch is, on May 11th, we announced our production for basically the first month, which is April, which was over 5,000 ounces our first month, and we sold all that. And like we mentioned, we continue to mine, stack, and produce gold and sell it. We expect to update the market, I would say, early July, and it'll probably include not the second batch, if you call it, but maybe the second and third. So probably May and June. So it'll be a much more robust update and release to the market.
Great. Okay, thanks for that update as well. Another one for Elmer on the chat board. Elmer, can you comment on the project monetization? It says many shareholders would like to know a possible timeline for asset sales. Maybe comment on Copper Fox and Teck's working relationship.
We have an excellent working relationship with Teck. Since we joined the joint venture in 2013, Teck became the operator of the project. And when we did the feasibility study in 2012, and it was released early 2013, I think people might have a hard time understanding the absolute scale of this project. For example, in the feasibility study, the byproduct production of gold from Shaft Creek alone was expected to be north of 200,000 ounces per year. Primary metal is copper, so it's a big project. It needs a major to take it forward. Clearly, at 2012, we peaked in the height of the CapEx and OpEx markets, and the copper, the commodity markets went south between 2012 and 2016. They turned around in 2016 and they came back north. And so in 2017, we started to update the resource estimate, which was important because the project was the feasibility study was about 4 years old at that time. Major companies take a very long-term outlook. They're very cautious as they move. They make sure they're absolutely certain on everything as they move forward. And we did the resource estimate. It took us a long time to get that done, primarily because we did have some pretty lengthy discussions on how it should be done. The bottom line was that there were no changes to the M&I resources used in the feasibility study, vis-a-vis what we had in 17. 18, we took another look at a different way to take a look at your project, right? And so the idea, we looked at 4 possible scenarios. The outcome was the one that looked at the 133,000 ton scenario. is the one that is probably the one that can give you the best optimum chance of maximizing the value. And so that's what's done. So we're waiting for the report to come out. We need the conclusions. We need the recommendations. We need what the next steps are. Copper Fox's opinion is simply this. It's not costing us anything to stay in the joint venture because those are that's part of the joint venture agreement we have with Teck. They are great people to work with. They're very smart because they bring a lot of expertise all over North America and South America to bear, which they have. And the idea is that we're going to continue to advance that project until the board of directors of Copper Fox figures that, okay, now is the time to make a decision when we're going to monetize it. Can't tell you when that's going to be, but we are working and we are continuing to advance the project. So the quick answer is not sure on the timeline when it's going to happen, but it will happen when the board determines that fair value has been reached and it is now time to monetize that asset.
Excellent. Thank you, Elmer. That's great. Quentin, one more for you here. Looking at, it's again off the chat board, and the question is, where would be your largest blue sky potential for additional resources be?
Right now, it's Motherlode. I didn't get into that part of the presentation, the short time to present, but we on the 13th of May, we announced a discovery hole of a massive oxide zone. It was 125 meters, 2.6 oxide, below the 400 meter drilling we've been doing for the past 2 years. That was the first core rig deep hole that we've done past 400 meters. There's one hole in it so far announced, and we've got a whole fence of holes done 150 meters away to the northwest to see if we can get a little bit more shape on it and how much deeper it goes. But right now, if this can hold together, that's your best shot to see a lot more ounces added to the around 2 that we're presuming is going to be in the first 400 meters. That'll be updated in the
excellent. That sounds good. Another question, just this might be a little bit more just on the costing side. You mentioned that there is a lot of interest right now in Nevada and a lot of drilling in your area. Are you finding basically the drilling costs are still competitive, or are we seeing a bit of an inflation on per meter drilling?
I haven't heard any changes in it, so I don't think there's. From what I understand, we've been working with the guys Borat for years now, so I don't really know if there's any changes. It doesn't actually come down to my end of the feed chain of the company, but I haven't heard anybody complaining about drill costs changing very much at all. Mark Reichman, our site geo, is excellent at getting the best out of each rig, and we've got two core rigs and one RC rig right now. We're drilling pre-colors with the RC. So essentially, we're just drilling to 400 meters. Once we hit the zone there, basically just put the core rig down in the hole from the RC rig and then drill deeper. And that saves about a third of the costs with the core tails.
Awesome. Yeah, that sounds really good approach. Okay, at this point, I'm going to change it up a little bit. We have about, I'd say 50, maybe 30 seconds for each one of the speakers to give a wrap up on their projects. And then I'll turn it back over to Sam. So why don't we start with Quentin, and he can wrap up on Corvus.
Well, for the next 6 months, you're going to see a lot of stuff happening with us. You're going to see drill results that are going to be trying to see if we can extend that oxide mineralization below Motherlode. A PEA, which includes the pre-feas component of a phase 1 out in September. And later this year, we'll initiate permitting for production on the phase 1, which would be 12 months permitting and 12 months build. So production 2023 of around 100 to 125,000 ounces a year in the model. So all the infrastructure there, all the baseline data is ready to go. So there's a lot happening in the next 6 months for Corvus.
Yep, sounds busy. Excellent. Thanks, Quentin. Elmer, please tell us about Copper Fox and provide the final words.
Yeah, my priority right now is working with Teck to get the 2019 Shack Creek report completed because that's our most advanced asset. Clearly, we've got other initiatives going on right now. One of which is completing the transaction of acquiring the Eagle Head project in British Columbia. And we're undertaking work right now to get started to do some groundwork on our Mineral Mountain Sombrero Butte projects. Because of the update in the resource estimate at Van Dyke, we have to sit back and we have to figure out which is the most optimal way to move that project forward. So over the next 6 months, like I said, we're cautiously optimistic we will get it on the ground. and we'll get some work done, and we're looking forward to it. It's going to be very exciting.
Thanks, Elmer. Anil, over to you on Steppe.
Yep, thank you, Al. The next 6 months are more production, more cash flow. Hopefully we get a re-rate in the market as a producer. We're not trading anywhere close to one, but we also have obviously exploration on both properties, starting with the UK project next month. The resource and reserve update on ATO in Mungu, maiden resource on Mungu, and the feasibility work on the phase 2, which now includes Mungu, which we should be able to deliver to the market by Q1 next year, maybe even by the end of this year, and hopefully get cracking on that.
Excellent. Thank you, Neil. And at that point, I'll probably turn it over to Sam. I'll just say to everybody who sent in chat questions, I know I didn't get to them all. I appreciate you sending them in. And if you do need to directly contact the speakers, I believe you have their contact information from the presentations. So thank you again. Sam, it's over to you.
Al, thanks a lot for hosting the Q&A period. Great questions, gentlemen. Thank you very much for presenting to the Western Canada group here. And everyone, thanks for joining us. In closing, please feel free to reach out to Neil, Quentin, or Elmer should you have any questions. And again, thanks again. 3 solid mining stories. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Sam. Let me just, we've got our contact details. Thank you to the presenters. Thank you to all our attendees. And thank you for your time today. Do go to the company websites and CEDAR to learn more about these companies, and check out TakeStockLive.com, where their presentations will be loaded up by tomorrow. Until next Wednesday, our season finale, 15 minutes after market close, when we have more mining companies presenting. Be determined in your due diligence and ask tough questions. Mark and Raj signing out from TakeStockLive.com.